Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Organically David, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me on my journey as I strive to live organically and authentically in every single way. As you know, this is the place to be for all things organic, all things holistic. So let's jump right into the mental health piece. And I actually want to paint this picture on how our mental health is impacting our physical health and how our physical health can impact our mental health. But today's video is we are continuing the conversation on childhood trauma, childhood experiences. And I want to highlight childhood experiences because I think that childhood trauma can seem like it's too strong of a word to use when we're talking about the life that we had during our childhood. That many of you may not consider yourself as having a major childhood traumatic experience or an event. But I do believe that all of us have had some type of experience that has impacted our adulthood. And I would say that based off of statistics, the CDC shows that 64% of all people in America, the population, have had at least one adverse childhood experience, or ACE. You may have heard of ACEs. These childhood experiences are experiences that are negative in nature, and they may not be as extreme as you may think. And you probably had something, at least one. 64% have had at least one, and then they say somewhere around 17 to 20%, I believe, had at least four or more adverse childhood experiences. So I want to take you through the test real quick. I know when you clicked on this video, you didn't think you were going to have to take a test, but it's real simple. And I want to, it's a yes or no. And you can find many of these online, but all of them are very much the same. This is a way to identify traumatic events as well as just negative experiences that have had a significant enough impact on your life. So please answer honestly. I'm going to ask you these questions. I don't know if you need to really write them down or not, but they're just yes or no, and these are prior to turning 18. So from birth to 17, did you have any of these experiences? Pull this up. So before you turn 18, did a parent or other adult in your household often or ever swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? Yes or no? Did a parent or adult in the household often push, grab, or slap or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? Did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you touch or fondle you, or have you touch their body in a sexual way? Or did they try or actually have some form of intercourse with you? Yes or no? Did you often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Yes or no? I know some of these questions may seem like they're multiple questions, but it's just they're expounding in it. The fifth one. Did you often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you, to take you to the doctor if you needed it? Yes or no? If you answer yes or no to any of the questions or the sub questions in there, it's just one answer, right? Number six, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Seven, was your mother or stepmother often grabbed, pushed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes or often kicked, bitten, hit something hard, or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes or threatened with a gun or a knife? Yes or no? Number 8, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs? Number 9, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt to unalive themselves? Yes or no? Did a household member go to prison? Yes or no? And then, so you just add up your yeses, and this will be your ACE score. For me, I scored 3. And what does that mean? So there are categories. There are 3 types of ACEs that include abuse, neglect, and then household dysfunction. Those are 3 categories. Underneath those categories, there are 10 kind of subcategories that go underneath it. So under the abuse category, there's physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Under neglect, there's physical and emotional neglect. And then under household dysfunction, there's mental illness, incarcerated relative, mother treated violently, then substance abuse and divorce. Interesting to say mother treated violently. What if the dad is treated violently? just joking, but it does happen. Abuse. The ACE study revealed that the following estimates: 28.3% of people experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse is 20.7%, emotional abuse is 10.6%. It's a percentage of study participants that experienced a specific ACE. As the number of ACEs increase, so does the risk for negative health outcomes. 0 ACE versus 4. So they categorized 4 and 10, and then 1 through 3, and then 0 is on its own. All of them have some ability or some risk of adverse outcomes. The behaviors, the possible risk outcomes, and these are the ones that I find interesting to me because you never would have associated, or at least I wouldn't have associated these physical outcomes for a mental experience. So behavior, lack of physical activity, smoking, alcoholism, drug use, missed work. Physical and mental health, severe obesity. And so these are the things that you have the behavior that happens from the ACE, and then you have the physical and mental health effect. So the behavior is the lack of physical activity, which results in obesity or severe obesity, heart disease. Then you have smoking, which can lead to diabetes and cancer. You have alcoholism can also be diabetes, but the mental health part of depression, which then leads to strokes. You have unaliving attempts, COPD, STDs, and broken bones. Of 17,000 ACE study participants, 36% experienced 0 ACEs, 26% experienced 1, 16% experienced 2, 9.5% experienced 3, and then 12.4% experienced 4. So my question is always, when you look at these type of studies, who were the participants? And the participants this is a study that was done by Kaiser Permanente, and the participants were those who were in childcare. So all of those individuals had healthcare, they're middle class people. So that heavily altered the results. That generally speaking, those who are from a higher socioeconomic class, generally speaking, have less aces versus those who have other altering situations in their lives. Doesn't say, doesn't at all, because as you can see, 12.4% have four plus aces, 64% have at least one ace. And so if you think about those who grew up in a household where there's drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff that's significant, those more significant ones, they probably have like a five, six, seven, all the way up to 10 aces. And that can be very traumatic. And why do, what is all what who cares about all of that, right? What the adverse childhood experience, what does that even how does that what does that mean in your life? These are things that could have happened to you, that you've gone through in your life, and that you may have felt like it was normal. You just had these experiences. This is just simply, you think, oh, my parents divorced. So what? That didn't really impact me. But that separation, that neglect that can happen throughout that process, because your parents are very human and they got divorced for whatever reason, and it had nothing to do with you as a child, but it still affected you as a child. These things can have such a significant impact on you, and that's why we have to unlock our past in order to have a brighter future, and even to have a brighter moment today. We have to unlock that. What happened when you were a child? And there's some ways that you can do that, and starting with writing, just writing it down. Sometimes that's all you need to do is just write it down and put it into words, and to try to fully understand what happened in your life. And as you read it back to yourself, it could be very therapeutic to read, to reopen it, to relive it. It could be emotional at first, and a very emotional roller coaster at first, to relive those moments. But you can find healing in that just simply by writing it down and putting your words down on paper and reading it back to yourself. You can find where it wasn't your fault. These experiences, when you were a child, you didn't have any control over your life. And I think what's happening in society now, we have a tendency to overcorrect, right? We have a tendency to try to right the wrongs for good reason, but I don't know that we do the best when it comes to actually correcting. We don't want to overcorrect it either. Everyone gets a trophy. No one has to feel bad at all. Like that, we can't have that happen either. But we want to just simply have a conversation. Sometimes that's the next step. You write it down, and you're like, this is great to refocus my words, to refocus, to put down all the scrambled eggs and put it back together. That's a great start, but the next step sometimes is actually having that conversation. Maybe writing it down and sending it to the person that it impacted you. Send them an email, send them a text or whatever. Just send it a letter in written form, so it allows that person to read the words that you wrote down, and you don't have to be there for their reaction. They can have time to process. And when they call you, if they do, they call you, if they write you back, know that it may be emotionally charged, because it's easy to become defensive. I think so many things can be solved if we wouldn't get defensive and we would just understand that it's not always about attack. Even when someone is attacking you, sometimes it's not about some. There are times people will tell me stuff about me, especially being in leadership. I hear things about myself, how people felt about something I did or said or whatever, and I don't take it as I'm being attacked. And I always stop and I just think, I can see it from your perspective. I can understand where you're coming from. However, this is what I meant, or this is what, and this is how I can clear it up for you. What would you like me to do about that? I can actually clear this up for you, to tell you what I feel, what I meant, and just stopping. Sometimes when a person comes up to you very defensively and says this, that, whatever, and they made you feel how dare you and all this other stuff, and I can see you could stop the person and say, it appears that you're taking this in a way that seems like I'm attacking you, and that's not my intent. You can't control how someone chooses to experience you, but you can be reflective enough to say, I wonder if people are experiencing me the way that I want them to experience me. That's about living a life authentically. If people are experiencing you the way that you want them to experience you, then that's okay. That's the goal. That's the goal, right? Like you shouldn't care so much about what people think, but you should care if people are experiencing you in the way that you want them to. You want to be feared. You want people to think. You want people to respect you. You want people to love you. You want people to think you're friendly or whatever it is that you decide that you want to be for people to experience you. That's how you should carry yourself in the world, and that's what you should do to seek that feedback from people to make sure that they're experiencing you the way that you want them to. But we're talking about the adverse when I'm thinking about the adverse childhood experiences, and I think about me and my score, I scored a 3 on this, and I think about how the relationship I have with my parents and how I got to the person that I am today. And I don't have a strong relationship. I've never had a strong relationship with my dad. We're cordial, we talk enough or every now and then. And sometimes you love people from a distance. But part of how I grew up, very free ranged, very the disconnect. It was very much that there wasn't a team unit in our home. And then I think when you are growing up that way, of this, everyone is kind of doing their own thing. What it causes is a lack of relationship. The relationship is not built on this strong foundation of team efforts by all parties as a unit. And I'm reminded of how everything manifests. I knew my dad as the disciplinarian. It wasn't like we were going to play and wrestle or play sports together or do anything fun together. Any relationship building experience. There was none. Fishing or any of that type of stuff. There was none of that. But I knew discipline. I knew there was going to be some discipline, and I knew I was going to have to. And there were some things I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to get a beating for something. I knew that I was going to have to clean up. I knew I was going to have to go outside and do some yard work. Everything was about doing something. There was no leisure. And what happens with that? There's no relationship. I remember I had to have been 4, yes. And my dad came to pick my brother and I up from school or aftercare or something to that effect. And when we saw him, we immediately started crying. And I remember his face, his look of confusion. Like, what the heck is wrong with these kids? I don't know. My mom was sick and he came to pick us up. It was a change in routine, but we knew him as the disciplinarian. So if he's coming, we're in trouble. We're getting beat. And I not believe you should have a healthy fear of your parents, but that is not healthy. That's not healthy at all. That your association with this person is just fear. We were afraid. We knew we were going to be in trouble for something. So we weren't. We It just came to pick us up. And so, years go by of just this non-relationship. And I remember when I was 8 at this point, and my dad came in. I was asleep. I don't know why I was asleep so early, but it was right around dinner time. We rarely ate dinner together, so abnormal. Uh, but we were eating dinner together that night, and my dad came into my room and told me to get up. I don't know if I wasn't getting up fast enough or still groggy, whatever. I don't know if I was fully awake, but I don't know how it turned into him kicking the bed, kicking my legs, all this stuff, telling me to get up. And now you think about how you would wake up your 8-year-old child, and maybe you turn the light on, maybe you pull the blanket, or maybe you shake them or something like that, saying, "Hey, time to get up," or whatever. But being kicked in the legs, being woken up by being kicked in the legs, kicked the bed, getting kicked. So I'm groggy. I'm getting myself together. I'm upset. Come out, and he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, your mother and I were thinking about giving you up for adoption." And he kind of had, like, I don't know, just kind of like a smirk on his face. And I it was I had no context. I don't know, maybe there was a inside joke between him and my mother or something like that, because I heard my mom say, "Don't say stuff, don't say that, don't tell him that, whatever," something to that effect. But I remember my thought in my 8-year-old self thinking, I wish they would. Maybe I can get with a family that actually loves and cares about me, and I can be myself. Of course, I wouldn't have dared said it because I probably would have got punched in the eye. But I remember having that thought, like, man, wish they were. Maybe life would be a little bit better. But I heard, and I've said this before, but it's so true that discipline without rebellion leads to, or discipline without rebellion, messed up the statement. Discipline without relationship leads to rebellion. And that's so true. It because it, there was the fraction fractured relationship where it just kept, it never healed. You just kept, it's a bone. You just keep breaking it, and you never fully heals, and it's always warped. And so we never gained this loving household relationship or whatever. And it's not to make him out, my parents, my dad, my mom, to be bad people or they intended to harm or any of that stuff. That's not even where my mind is. Uh, it's more just to point out that these things happened, and they affected my childhood, and I had to get over it in my adulthood, my early 20s, just getting over all of that. It just went from, for me, it went on a place of sadness to anger to apathy. And that is a dangerous place. Apathetic, at least when you're, apathy is a dangerous place when you're in a place of, I'm sad or I'm angry, I care. But with them apathetic, that's a dangerous place for anyone to get. When you're apathetic, where you no longer care at all about the relationship, where you're just like, whatever, I can take it or leave it, it's a dangerous place because that person has moved on, and it will, and who knows if it could ever be turned around. It's going to take an extreme part. It's something extreme to happen in order to heal that relationship. And what I would say, what would it would take for anyone's relationship, simply, what if it's an amazing concept to me. What if in your humbleness you were able to heal someone else's brokenness? What if it just took a small chunk of you out of you to drop your pride for a moment to say, heck on it, I messed up in these areas. I know that life was difficult in these spaces. I know that, I don't know, I'm just making this as hypothetical, but if you, I'm a difficult person and I grew up as a difficult, hard to please parent, and my child grew up under that. And just if I said to you, I understand that I could be hard to please. I know that I'm critical of you. I know that I've done things in the past bringing you up that I'm not proud of, and I can't take it back. These things happen, and I apologize. And my hope is that we can move forward because I value you. Let me tell you how powerful that would be, just in your humbleness. Just that's all it takes. Just take a slice of humble pie and go to that person and tell them, I messed up. And that's just a parent relationship, but that can be any relationship that you have. That if you could just take a small moment, the Bible says that pride goes before a fall. How can you recover if you are approaching everything in such a prideful way? Not all about defense, not all about we're fighting. Where it's, do you want the relationship? Do you value the relationship enough to break the cycle? Why keep it going? Because we only have one life to live. Saw an interesting Facebook post that talked about how 100 years from now we are no longer, none of us, you watching me, none of us, we're not going to be here, and it'll be up to our children's generation or the generation after them, or the more generations as time goes on, you disappear. They put your picture up on the wall and they say, this was my great grandparent, this is my great 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 grandparent, this is my, and then eventually you just disappear altogether. So what's worth it is what's happening to you right now. What's worth it is happening to you in the future, and you only hope that you have a future. You only hope and pray that you have a future, because nothing is promised. So don't leave something up to simply your humbleness. Just be humble. Have the conversation. And if you have something on you where you've had these adverse childhood experiences that have impacted you in such a way, and a person is looking to have their heal to come to you humbly, this is not the time to be to push it in, to push the knife in to make it worse, because they're already coming to you in a way that's very difficult to humble yourself, especially as a parent humbling themselves to a child or someone who wants to be right. The problem we have is we always want to be right. We want to win arguments. We want to have great sound bites. But what's the point? You win. Say you win the argument. So now what? Do you get the thing? That's the relationship, the whatever. Are you just so focused on winning? So if you have these adverse childhood experiences, you have childhood trauma, you can change it. Let's just say the person never decides to have these conversations with you, and you just have to live with it. You've journaled, you've been writing it down to help yourself process these emotions. You've tried, maybe you've written them a letter. Maybe you write them a letter and you don't send it. Maybe you just write it, tend to send it, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it or whatever, but you've written it and you've gotten it out there. Or you choose to send it to them, understanding that they could address it, approach you in a more defensive and aggressive way. But if they do come back to you and say, on it, you're right. Don't then take the opportunity to go and make it worse and say, well, yeah, first of all, you did this. Take it and acknowledge how difficult it was for them to come to you in the first place and say that. And then you may need to get counseling. And I don't know why that has such a stigma here. Why counseling, therapy, speaking to someone has this such a negative, which is why it has such a stigma. Just go in and talk to someone because they're trained to help you, whether it's a life coach or whether it's a licensed psychologist, a therapist. Just talk to someone to help you make sense of it all, to really the broken puzzle pieces, the pieces that you may feel like are missing. They may have the one piece that you need to complete the entire puzzle and help you put it all together, to give you the alley oop. I like to think of it as the puzzle pieces, and they're the ones that go around the edges and build it so you have the framework, and then you're putting all the pieces together and building the puzzle back together to make it now a whole picture, a whole piece. So go in and talk to somebody. The stigma's gone. What are we doing? Let's just get in there, talk to somebody, and keep it moving. Because there is the laws that says they can't talk to other people about it and all that other kind of stuff. But who cares? Whatever. It's better to be an open book. It's better. We got into this place by not talking about it. So let's just remove that stigma of not talking to someone and getting some help. Practice some meditation. That's a great way to center yourself. I mean, the science and studies have shown that meditation lowers anxiety and depression and stuff like that. A great way of centering yourself. Same way with yoga is a kind of a form of like meditation, but it's more functional. Um, these are just some ways that will help you along the way. You're not alone in this on this journey. We've all had. You see, 64% of us had at least one ACE, and it's 64% based off of the 17,000 people that were. I'm sure the rate of ACEs are much higher than we even realize, especially just the divorce one alone. 50% of people get in marriages end in divorce, and how many of those have children and involved, and there's just so many things out there with alcoholism and all that stuff. But these things affect your physical health, your mental health affecting your physical health, and that's so important because these things may not be tied to your diet. It may not be. You can exercise all day, you can eat salads and vegan, raw vegan, and organic, and all of this stuff. Take a million supplements and all that stuff. But if your mental health is messed up, you still end up dying of a stroke. And you're like, how did this person die of a stroke? Because they ate so well, they treated their body so well, and how did they thrive? You think about Prince, Michael Jackson. I think about Prince, both of them, Michael Jackson, both they had what they worked really hard and they over and the stressors of life and all that stuff. They died really young. The the pressures that we put on ourselves, the mental health issues from our past, they have a physical effect for our present and our future. So that if we can just find healing by some of the ways I've discussed, I think that'd be a great way to really rebalance, refocus, and understand how these things impact your life. So, always, always, don't remember anything else I said. Continue to love life, focus on living your best life. Hopefully, your best life means you're living a life organically and authentically. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the content, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. And please let me know down below in the comments what you all would like to discuss. If this was helpful for you, please share it with someone. And let's just start this journey of healing, restoration, and remembering that we only have one life to live. And the life that we live, in 100 years, how much of any of this stuff going to matter? So stressing about things just doesn't make sense. So let's continue to love life, live your best life. And hopefully, again, your best life is a life lived organically.